Shabbat Shalom. This week is a special week in our Torah reading cycle. This week we begin again at the beginning. We have the opportunity to turn our scroll back and read it again. We read the same book each year, and yet it never gets boring. We always find something new to learn. While the text stays consistent, we continue to grow, to change, to develop, to have different experiences. When we come back to read from our Torah, we bring all that with us. We bring our learning and growing and experiences with us, and they function as lenses for our understanding. They make certain words or phrases or ideas pop out in ways they haven't before. We find that we understand certain parts in ways we hadn't in the past. This year, what pops out for me is the development of the character of God throughout the Parsha. In the beginning, God creates the world in various steps over a number of days, and each day God is happy with God's work and says it's good. Then God rests for a while and continues to create, planting a garden and laying out the land exactly how God wants it. Everything according to plan. And then the humans start making choices that don't follow the plan. The people were supposed to follow God's instructions and stay happy and shame-free, living off the garden that God provided and eating from any tree but the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Everything was supposed to be perfect and in order. Not good or bad, just functional. But that's not life. We know life is more complicated than that. When the first people ate the fruit from the forbidden tree of knowledge of good and evil, suddenly perfection went out the window and the shame of being imperfect took over. Adam and Eve even hid from God because they were ashamed of being naked. Notice the only difference between perfect and imperfect, contentment and shame, was their perception of the world around them, not the world itself. This was not what God intended, but God tried to adapt and make it work. God made clothes for Adam and Eve and helped them to settle outside the garden so they wouldn't be tempted with any more forbidden fruit. But that's where God lost control, and the people took over. The people began to multiply and fight and make choices that strayed from God's perfect intentions. By the end of the Parsha, God is frustrated and ready to give up on this whole creation thing. God was ready to destroy it all, but then God found favor with this one guy, Noah. This is where our Parsha ends. Will God give up and destroy the world? Come back next week to find out what happens. But in all seriousness, this story feels familiar. Can you think of a time when you made a plan, when you worked out all the details and wanted everything to be perfect, and then despite all your planning, life happened and things turned out differently than expected? It is understandable to want to throw your hands in the air and give up, feeling the shame of failing, wondering if you could have done it differently, or if you should have ever done it at all. But imagine if that's how our Torah began. What if it went, in the beginning, God wanted to create the world, but decided it may not be perfect, and so didn't try? Where would we be then? As people, we have learned for generations and generations that we should try to appear perfect and be ashamed when we fail. It is hard work to unlearn that. It goes all the way back to the beginning of our creation story. But we have the power to learn and grow and come back to this text with fresh eyes each year. This year, may we see that perfection is actually not our goal, that there is beauty in seeing the world for what it is, that our shame of imperfection runs deep but is not inevitable. In the beginning, there was chaos, and God created order. Then there was too much order, so God created humans to balance everything out. May we find balance in our expectations for ourselves and the humans around us as well, as we do our best, as we all do our best, to make sense of the beautiful chaos of life. Shabbat Shalom.